All right, so let's go get more questions answered.
Back to science.
Back to science.
Science.
So this question is, I heard some boats are too heavy to float in rivers or lakes, but float just fine in seas and oceans. Why do things float better in salt water than in fresh water?
Sure, so Casey Orr heard correctly. That is true. Well, okay, I should be honest with you. I didn't really know this about boats because I don't actually know that much about like boats per se. I'm not a boating individual, having been landlocked most of my life. But it makes sense that there would be boats that could float on the ocean, but that could not float on lakes or streams because this has to do with density. So the basic idea is that the density of an object allows it to be buoyant on water or in a fluid. So even though a boat weighs quite a bit, right? We can just imagine a boat on a lake. Even though that boat weighs quite a bit, and if you were to take that boat and crumple it into a ball where there was no empty space inside of the boat and you were to let it and drop it in a lake, it would surely sink right to the bottom. But because boats have greater surface area, because they divide that weight that they have over a greater surface area, and often contain empty pockets of air, which have very low density. Because of those things, boats are less dense than water, and hence they float on water. Freshwater versus saltwater is more dense than fresh water. So because saltwater is more dense than freshwater, it can keep boats that are more dense up in a way that freshwater could not. And a way to model this would be to think about the old egg in the cup experiment. So if we jump to my computer screen, there's a picture of 3 different cups with eggs inside of them. 2 of them are a little bit cloudy. But essentially what we have here is the cloudy cups are saltwater cups of different levels of saltwater, and the clear cup is freshwater. You can see in the case of the freshwater cup, the egg that they put in it sank all the way to the bottom. And that's because freshwater, while it is somewhat dense and can hold some things up, is not dense enough to hold this egg up. The cup all the way on the right has an amount of salt water that allows the egg to float in the middle. And the cup in the middle, obviously, it's got the egg all the way at the top, meaning that the cup in the middle must have more salt in it than the cup on the right, because the water in the middle cup is more dense, hence it's holding the egg further up. And this is kind of a cool experiment to do because you can see as you add salt, you can imagine, or you can actually watch the egg progress up, or you could get a series of cups and line them up, and at different levels of saltwater see how much more dense they are, how much more they were able to hold up the egg. So again, this basically just has to do with the fact that ocean water has salt in it and is therefore more dense.